When a soldier returned home on his daughter's birthday, he dreamed of balloons, laughter, and hugs. But what he found instead was a dark room, two tearful little girls, and a single piece of bread with a candle. What had happened while he was gone would shatter his heart. Sergeant David Miller tightened his grip on the leash of his faithful German shepherd, Shadow, as the military transport bus rumbled closer to his hometown. The afternoon sun glowed warm on the horizon, reflecting the excitement and nervousness churning in his chest. For nearly a year, he had survived endless nights on the battlefield, his only comfort being letters from his wife and drawings from his twin daughters, Emily and Grace. He had replayed this moment in his mind countless times, bursting through the front door, scooping his girls into his arms, and watching their faces light up with joy as they blew out candles on a birthday cake. He imagined colorful balloons swaying from the ceiling, their giggles echoing through the house. Shadow sat alert at his side, tail wagging as if he, too, sensed the homecoming would be special. Everything was supposed to be perfect. The bus hissed to a stop, and David stepped off, his boots crunching on the gravel of the driveway. He inhaled deeply, expecting the scent of home to fill him with comfort. But instead, the air felt strangely still. Shadow's ears flicked as they approached the small, weathered farmhouse, its paint peeling and windows dark. There were no birthday banners fluttering in the breeze, no excited voices drifting from inside. The quiet was heavy, unsettling. David pushed open the creaky front door, calling out softly, "Emily? Grace?" His voice echoed off empty walls. Dishes sat unwashed in the sink, and toys lay abandoned in the corner. A thin layer of dust coated the table where he had imagined a birthday cake waiting. Shadow patted inside, nose low to the ground, sniffing with uneasy urgency. His tail drooped, and he let out a low, uncertain whine. David's heart began to pound. He moved through the house, room by room, but found no sign of his wife or daughters. The silence grew oppressive, each step making his dread mount. Something was terribly wrong, and the joyful reunion he dreamed of seemed to slip further away with every passing second. A faint sound, like muffled sobbing, drifted in from outside. David's breath caught as he hurried through the back door, Shadow close on his heels. His boots crunched across the frost-bitten grass toward the old barn at the edge of their property. As he reached the slightly ajar door, he pushed it open slowly, the hinges groaning in protest. Huddled together on a tattered blanket were his daughters, Emily and Grace. Their cheeks were streaked with tears, their eyes red and puffy. Between them sat a chipped plate holding a single, stale piece of bread with a tiny candle stuck in its center, its weak flame flickering in the drafty barn. They wore matching, threadbare sweaters, their small hands clasped tightly as if trying to hold each other together. The girls' faces lit with shock and then a desperate hope as they recognized their father, but the fear in their eyes didn't fade. "Daddy," Emily whimpered, her voice cracking like dry leaves. Shadow whined softly, stepping forward to lick Grace's trembling hand. The girls leaned closer to each other, sobs breaking free. David fell to his knees, arms open. He felt a crushing weight of helplessness pressing down on him. The room smelled of old hay and sorrow, a stark contrast to the warm, joyful birthday he had imagined. His daughter's silent birthday was more heartbreaking than any battlefield he had ever known. The barn's shadows seemed to close in around David as memories of his family struggle during his deployment played out in his mind like a tragic film reel. His wife, Sarah, had tried so hard to stay strong after he left. At first, she wrote letters full of hope, sharing stories of the girls' milestones, their laughter, their dreams for his return. But over time, her words grew shorter, more strained, as bills piled up and the fridge emptied faster than she could fill it. She hid it at first, telling David she was just tired, but the sickness stole her energy and drained her spirit. Doctor visits cost money they didn't have, and each day became a battle just to keep Emily and Grace fed. Friends and neighbors helped where they could, but soon even those visits slowed. Loneliness settled over the little farmhouse like a heavy blanket, muffling every happy sound. At night, the girls would lie awake in bed, whispering stories about the father they missed so much. They'd trace the stars outside their window, imagining him somewhere far away under the same sky, promising themselves he'd come back soon. But the days without him grew longer and colder, and Sarah's health worsened until she couldn't get out of bed. One night, Sarah called the girls. Close, her voice a faint echo of the strong mother they knew. She told them she loved them, that their father loved them, and that they had to be brave. A week later, she was gone, and the house became silent. The girls moved to the barn, clinging to each other in the hope that one day, the door would open, and he would finally come home. David sat on the barn floor, his arms wrapped tightly around his daughters as they cried into his chest. He held them like he was trying to piece together the broken parts of their lives with the strength of his embrace. Shadow lay beside them, his head resting gently on Grace's lap, sensing the depth of their sorrow. That David's heart ached with guilt. He had spent every day fighting for his country, but he hadn't been there to fight for his family. He hadn't known how much Sarah had been suffering, or how close they had come to losing everything. The thought of his girls lighting a candle, alone on their birthday while he was halfway across the world, was unbearable. He kissed their foreheads, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry. I should have been here." In that moment, he made a silent vow. Never again would they feel alone. As the heavy silence settled in, Shadow moved closer to the girls, his gentle eyes fixed on them with unusual tenderness. He let out a soft whine, then carefully nudged his head beneath Emily's hand. She hesitated, fingers trembling, before slowly stroking the dog's fur. For the first time that day, a faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Grace leaned into Shadow, burying her face in his thick coat. The loyal dog stayed still, his body warm and steady like an anchor in the storm. He wasn't just a trained military partner. He was family, and he understood that these girls needed him now more than ever. David watched in awe as Shadow comforted his daughters in a way words never could. The dog's presence softened the grief in the room, offering the smallest flicker of light in the darkness. Somehow, in their pain, the healing had already begun. David held his daughters close, their small bodies trembling against his chest. He looked around the dusty barn, the broken windows, the worn-out blanket, the forgotten birthday candle, and felt something shift deep inside him. This wasn't just about coming home anymore. It was about rebuilding everything they'd lost. He gently lifted the girls into his arms, one on each side, and stood tall. "No more birthdays in silence," he whispered. "No more feeling forgotten. I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." His voice cracked, but his words were steady, a promise carved in stone. Shadow followed close behind as David carried them back toward the house. The barn door creaked shut behind them, sealing off the cold and the memory of that lonely day. Inside, he lit the fireplace for the first time in months, wrapped his daughters in a warm blanket, and sat with them until their eyes finally closed. In peaceful sleep, as the flames danced and flickered, David began to make plans, not just for cake and balloons next year, but for healing, for laughter, for warmth. They would rebuild this home together. And their next birthday, it would be filled with light, love, and the joy they all deserved. Emily stirred first, rubbing her eyes and sitting up to find her father still holding them close, his arms wrapped protectively around both girls. Grace yawned, blinking sleepily before resting her head against his shoulder once more. David smiled gently as his daughters looked up at him. "We'll be okay," he said. "We have each other now." The pain wasn't gone, but hope had taken root. And in that quiet, powerful moment, a soldier, his daughters, and a loyal dog began a new chapter, together.